Good evening, everyone. My name is Vineeta Dwivedi, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you all to this August gathering on a very beautiful Tuesday evening. Today, we have three incredible speakers who will hopefully add to the overall knowledge of the world around us and will probably help us make sense of it too. Today is an evening of mindful reflection on the current economic and policy climate of the country, and we can also reflect that the world is ready to make an economic pivot to Asia, to India. And while we are thinking about these, we will also talk about wellness and health, without which, what is wealth? To give us a sharp focus insight on many such things, we have three brilliant speakers, and I'll give you a quick intro of our three speakers. Mr. Anil Swarup. Round of applause, please. Thank you. A career bureaucrat, 30 years in the civil service, top civil servant of the government of India, who has seen it all from top ranks in Uttar Pradesh bureaucracy. Today is 30 years of the Babri Masjid demolition. Mr. Swarup will tell you a little bit more about it. He was there, he saw it. To being the Coal and Education Secretary, and now a celebrated writer of three best-selling books, and they are called Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant, Not Just a Civil Servant, and No More a Civil Servant. And he is a speaker par excellence, and you'll see that in a moment. Mr. Dilip Gaur. Mr. Gaur is the director of Aditya Birla Management Corp. Private Limited. The group's apex decision-making body and provides strategic direction to the group companies. He has been the MD of Grasim India and has 40-plus years of business leadership experience in a plethora of industries spanning multiple geographies, cultures, technologies. He's also in the board of governors of BITS, Birla Institute of Technology and Science, and is the governing council member of BITSOM, one of the newest business schools in Mumbai. And then we have Mr. Ashish Kaushik. He's a sports physiotherapist, the fitness consultant to top sportsmen in our country, the cricket team of India. He has trained the likes of Virat Kohli and MS Dhoni on how to take care of their health and to optimize performance. It's a working day today, and you all found the time to come here for this evening of intense talks and discussions. It shows how much you like policy and debate. And second, more important, how much you love Mr. Suresh. Our host, the man behind this evening, who put together the stellar lineup of speakers and has left no stones unturned to make it a memorable evening for more reasons than one. I've worked with him on the sidelines only, but I not just admire his work ethic, but also his keen eye for detail and urge to add more to the society. He's arguably the most well-known and established name in the consulting and executive search business and has placed over 100 CEOs in top companies in the country. His client roster is huge, his friendships are vast and varied, and he brings it all together in this incredible program today. Mr. Suresh, would you please say hello to the audience now?
Good evening, everyone. Are you able to hear me? Okay. People in the full-back positions? Louder? Okay. Midfield? Football season, so difficult to take the football out of the terminology. First of all, I can't be more pleased than what I am now. My wife, Kusum Suresh, whom you all know, she's around. We both and my team, Insist Consulting team, all of them join me in welcoming you amidst us this evening. As Vineeta spoke, we have eminent speakers who are practitioners, who have done the heavy lifting, who are, like they say in jargon, you walk the talk. In this case, they will talk the walk. They've already had the walk. They will talk about it in all its splendor. They have seen the business and the corporate world and the government policy-making world at the closest seat possible, and they've been driving things themselves. So we have We are really, really lucky to have these two people from the corporate and the government side, and Ashish from the fitness world today. I thought we should fully utilize their presence and their communication and their presentation to us today. So that's the agenda. I'm setting the agenda for the evening. Now, I need and I owe an apology and I owe an explanation for bringing all of you and assembling you here in the hall today and not letting you go home and watch Spain-Morocco match, which is beginning any time now. I owe an explanation. Otherwise, you'll wonder, what is this forum all about? Why did we conceive this? Where was it pulled out of? So I'll give you a bit of background to where we are today. So we are in the consulting business, primarily in the leadership, capital, or executive appointment business. We have done that, for God knows how many years. The earliest memory I can think of is I'm still doing executive hiring and nothing else in life. So a lot of experience in that front. I always thought we have the heartbeat or the pulse beat of the country's economy, because once the corporate in any domain sees opportunities to grow, the first thing they think of is the financial capital, second is the intellectual capital or the leadership capital. So they do have a quick interactions with people like us. So we see the pulse, we see the heartbeat of the country. I thought, why not put that all together, package it, and talk to you guys on how country is shaping up, how this country, which is so vast geographically, demographically, population-wise, but industry, how is it shaping up? How is it becoming absolutely well-received globally? I thought I owe this to the friends of mine. I owe this to people I interact with. I thought, let me do this forum and pull this rabbit out of my pocket. And I surprised all of you today. And I'm glad you came in good numbers, braving all the traffic and so on and so forth. Secondly, thank you very much. So secondly, I do feel that last 4, 5, 6 years, there was too much of a digital blast in the media, which is truly, truly required. They did a great job. All the digital technology companies have made our lives easy, have become part of our day-to-day living. They were called, and I was surprised in Bangalore, there was a seminar like this, and I was surprised when the digital companies were organized. I was thinking they will be organized as software, e-commerce, and what have you. They were organized as streamers, which is Netflix and Sony Live and Woot and whatever you can think of. Then the next one were movers, Uber and Amazon, and they'll move things for you, including moving you in the mobility sense. Then the third was very, very funny. They were called creepers. Means they see where the eyeball of yours is and put an ad there. That's Google and that's Facebook and what have you. Then the others were intermediaries. So with that kind of creepers, streamers, movers, intermediaries, and shakers and everybody, we have been consummated. So digital has consummated us. We are now, whether we like it or not, digital natives. But during that time, what happened was the traditional industry, the manufacturing, the infrastructure, the consumer staples, the pharmaceuticals, and so on and so forth, they were all called legacy industry. And they were called traditionals, they were legacy, and money poured into the digital, and money also poured into the legacy industry. You will be surprised. The total money which came through FDI route is about $300, $400 billion in the last 5 years. Equal amount has gone to startups in the last 5 years in India. So it's been equal, whereas the limelight has been hogged by the digital tech companies, rightfully so. I'm not saying that they didn't deserve the place under the sun. They've done a great job in India. That's how India is so proudly number 3 in the number of unicorns, number of soonicorns, and whatever statistics you want to talk of. Today is not my day where I'm going to talk about macroeconomic statistics, nor will the eminent speakers are going to do that. I only want to leave the stage set for these two people by saying one important message that we are seeing in the consulting world day in, day out. The message is the so-called legacy companies have come back with vengeance. Today, our leadership hiring is shifted from the so-called e-commerce play into the legacy play. There are a lot of companies coming to us, chemical companies, there are a lot of companies, auto engineering, auto is booming. If you didn't know or know, 25% of the installed capacity in India for vehicle making is exported. 1 million vehicles will be exported from India willy-nilly this year, maybe 850,000, which includes cars. Each one of them, Volkswagen, Renault, Nissan, Daimler, everybody is exporting happily 150,000, 200,000 cars. So if this is what India is, today's newspaper says India is going to export mobile phones worth $10 billion US. Until the other day, we were loaded, flocked with the Chinese mobile phones. Today, we are exporting. So export is a big trend. We are hiring people left, right, and center for such things. So I thought the main street is back, and the digital is also transforming itself, moving from e-commerce companies to software SaaS companies and SaaS companies to hardware companies, with 5G being a reality. A lot of tech gadgets are coming up incorporating 5G. We have companies, every company is having a smart product now. There are smart jewelry, smart clothing, smart tracking, smart, everything is smart. The car is so smart that the Chinese don't call car as a mechanical engineering object anymore. They call car as a software-defined object. Car is a software-defined object, and you don't go to car for driving and taking you from place X to place Y. You go to car for entertainment anymore. So if you want to watch a football match, there will be plenty next 10 days. You can come out of your room, go to the parking lot, switch on the entertainment, sit in the car, and watch the football immersively. So the tech is also trailblazing, continues to trailblaze, and the main street is galloping in India. We are absolutely witnessing, I don't think stock market is reflecting what India really is at the core of this country. So I thought, if I have to say this expressively to all my folks, there are two ways of doing it. I keep putting thoughts in WhatsApp messages, or bring two eminent people who have seen it, experienced it, and know a better way and are more authentic to talk about it. And I thought the best way is to collect all of you and bring them and make them talk to us. That's where we are. I hope I'll be justified in robbing your time from the Moroccan-Spanish match today. And thank you very much for coming in here in good numbers. I'll set the stage back to Mr. Swarup. Bye-bye. See you.
Good evening to all of you. My compliments to Mr. Suresh. He first opens the bar and then calls me to talk about it. A civil servant of all the persons. But compliments to you nonetheless for having the courage to call a former civil servant to speak to CEOs of various companies. It takes a lot of courage to do that. But this is my first ever experience where I've had to compete with the bar. So pardon me if... What I'm going to talk about today is why things don't happen in the government, with a view to explaining to you how can they be made to happen. It's very important. Because if you want to find a solution to a problem, you have to understand why it has happened in the first place. Now let me tell you, with my experience of 38 years as a civil servant, as I try to analyze as to why things don't happen in the government, and having understood that, I try to make few things happen, and I'll share that with you. You know, in this country, it's very easy to have an idea. You know, talk about COVID, go down the street and ask somebody, yaar, kuch karna chahiye, wo bata dega ek lambi list, kya karna chahiye. Everyone has a prescription. But the problem is that for any idea to fructify and sustain in a democracy like ours, it has to be politically acceptable, socially desirable, technologically feasible, financially viable, administratively doable, judicially tenable, and emotionally relatable. And above all, I'll explain this to you. And above all, for a civil servant like me, मुख्तसर सी जिंदगी के अजब से अफसाने हैं, यहाँ तीर भी चलाने, परिंदे भी बचाने. How do you make things happen when situation is this? So let me explain this to you. Can you think of an idea to sustain and to fructify and sustain if it is not politically acceptable in a democracy? I can't think of an idea. if the boss does not agree with whatever ideas throw up or whatever suggestion that you give, it's gone. But this is not to say it still can't happen. The trick is how to sell this idea to a politician, which I did as a civil servant, to make him believe that it is also politically acceptable to him. And I'll come later with specific examples of how it can actually be done. As a civil servant, we are in a habit of blaming everything on the politician and how wrong we are. I saw politicians of all shapes, sizes, and colors. Having worked closely with Mr. Modi, I was secretary to Mr. Kalyan Singh. Incidentally, on this day, 6 December, 30 years ago, I was the only person with Mr. Kalyan Singh when Babri Masjid came down. Time permitting, I'll narrate that later on. So I had the occasion with working close to Dr. Manmohan Singh. So I saw all of them. Outstanding people. They're as good, as bad, as ugly as you and I. But we keep blaming them. The trick is to understand the politician, and that's what I tell my honest colleagues who are honesty full stop. I keep telling them, your job is not pure honesty. Honesty is a necessary condition, but not a sufficient condition to deliver things. You have to deliver things on the ground, and honesty is a given, and you can still do it. So, whatever you suggest has to be politically acceptable. It has to be socially desirable. Look at what happened to the family planning policy way back in the 70s. It bombed because it was politically acceptable but not socially desirable. Similarly, it has to be technologically feasible. You may have a brilliant idea, but if the technology doesn't exist at that point in time, it may come later on, it won't work. As Secretary of School Education, let me give you a bit of a background. I was first posted as Coal Secretary Government of India, and I didn't know much about the sector. So I rang up a friend of mine. I asked him, "Yaar, coal sector kaisa hai?" Usne kaha, "Gangs of Wasseypur dekhi hai kya?" Answered. Sometimes questions answer your questions. So I tried to do whatever I could. By God's grace and on account of an absolutely amazing team that we had, we sorted the coal mess. In fact, I had a round table in my room, and there was so much positive energy in that room that on occasions we used to jokingly say that give us the Kashmir problem, we just might be able to find a solution to it. And as luck would have it, two of my joint secretaries, one of them is presently Home Secretary, Government of India, the other is Additional Chief Secretary, Jammu and Kashmir. They're sorting the Kashmir problem. So I keep telling my colleagues, it's a question of attitude. Problems may not be of your making, sometimes of your making, or your colleagues' making, or somebody's making. But if you have that attitude, you can find a solution to the problem. Then I got posted to school education. And I used to wonder, what have I to do with school education? And then I discovered that probably the government was looking for the most uneducated, illiterate civil servant to head the education ministry. And there I was. I thought that I was moving out of the dark dungeons of coal mines to the bright lights of school education. And to my utmost horror, I found the situation in the education sector was much worse than in the coal sector. In the coal sector, all the mining was underground and the mafias were overground. In the education, it was the other way around. All the mafias underground, eating into the essentials of Indian society. It was in that context that there were so many advisors who came and told me, they took pity on me, this guy doesn't know anything. So we call them Rai Sahibs in UP, They only give Rai, advice. They wouldn't have done anything in their lives, but they are very good at giving. And there are some very costly ones across the Atlantic. They come here once in a while to tell you what you should do, and then they go away. Because it's so hot and humid in India, that they go back to their coal climbs and keep pontificating from there. So one of those guys who came to me, he said, "Sir, we were having problems with school teachers, shortage of school teachers and all. So first he tells me, sir, you must go to England, Finland, Holland, Scotland, this land, that land, every land. And before he could end, I asked him, have you visited the motherland? He didn't realize it. And then he said, sir, you have a teacher's problem, sir, you do one thing. Sir, you webcast it centrally and let it be received in all the schools. You don't need teachers. So I said, are you aware that a large part of this country is not internet connected? Even in Delhi, sometimes the internet goes away. Oh, is that so? So it's not that internet will not get connected. We won't get internet. The question is, idea has to be technologically feasible at that point in time. Then, of course, it has to be financially viable. Jeb mein nahi patta, chal diya Kolkata. How can you come up with an idea? You don't have the money. But I have always said that if you have a great idea, then money will follow it. should have the capability to market that idea, and it applies to all of you also. When you go to the government, you should be able to tell the government, okay, you may not have money at this point in time, but this is the flow that will come to you. It gels, it sells. The tragedy is that we in the government thought that sab businessman chor hai. And everyone in the businessman thought that every bureaucrat is corrupt. Both were equally wrong. I discovered through my career that there are outstanding people both in the public and the private domain. All the rascals and ruffians of both public and private come together and make life difficult for us, but unfortunately the good people don't come together. So what I worked on in 38 years to get the public and private together. And it worked. It worked miracles. Some of them are outlined in my book. Because my contention is very clear. Efficiencies will come from the private domain and scale will come from the government domain. And the two should come together to make things happen. They can be made to happen. Much of the credit that I get for doing whatever I did during my career goes to this combination. I used to call myself a principal facilitator, not Secretary Government of India. People used to ask me, how are you able to leave office at 6 o'clock? At Secretary Government of India for 4 years, probably one of the longest service secretaries, I used to leave office at 6 o'clock and people didn't believe it. I said, I always thought they are better people than me. They should do the work. Why should I do the work? I only create an environment where they can work. And then they work. They are happy, I'm happy. Everyone is happy. So it has to be financially viable. Then it has to be administratively doable. I say that because you may have a great idea which is politically acceptable, socially desirable, technologically feasible. You have the money also, financially viable. But if you don't have the human resource, how do you make it happen on the ground? You have to get that. Now, I'm mentioning all these dimensions not to tell you that it can't be made to happen. I'm saying that you must recognize the terrain in which you're working. And once you recognize this terrain, you'll be able to sail through it. So you have to have the human resource. Then, of course, judicially tenable. I mean, this is one sector which I couldn't do anything. You know, this is an amazing sector. You know, when I wrote a book on ethical dilemmas of a civil servant, and I go around the country talking about ethics, and someone asked me this question, sir, then how did Gogoi get away with what he did? I have no answer for that. And then he asked me second question, sir, how can there be a compromise in sexual harassment? How can there be a compromise for a compromise? You know, either the lady was wrong or the judge was wrong. There can't be a compromise, but there was a compromise. So, frankly speaking, I told him, yeah, I can get away with not answering all your questions. I don't know the answer to that question. But the fact of the matter is, that guy got away with it. But I tell him that it's an exception. I still believe ethical conduct pays. My entire book is all about that. And let me digress a bit and explain this to you, why I wrote that book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant. I used to go to the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration regularly, and I used to interact with officers of all seniorities. And I found that youngsters, when they joined, they had a lot of enthusiasm, they wanted to do things. But as they went up the ladder, they started blaming others, politicians, circumstances. And I told them, look at the officers who've been ethical in their conduct and have done very well. But the tragedy is, we don't discuss ethical officers who've done well in life and done well. We only discuss the negative part. Ye jail mein chala gaya, uske yahan itna pakda gaya. Why? Because we are fond of masala, no? We discuss only that. And that's why post-retirement, I started this movement called Nexus of Good. The idea is to demonstrate to the naysayers that good can happen because good is happening. We are not looking at it. How about looking at that good, analyzing it, understanding it, replicating it, and scaling it so that good people can come together? As I said earlier, if all the rascals and ruffians of the world could come together, why shouldn't good come together? And that's what Nexus of Good is all about. I'm mentioning this here because if you find an opportunity, go to this portal, you'll find hundreds of stories where wonderful work is being done, not being discussed. I think we should discuss it. So coming back to that, the 6 items that I had mentioned, judicial tenability, then finally, it is also emotional relatability. Now, this dimension was added when Farms Bill happened. Actually, my book talks about only 6 dimensions. The 7th was added because here was a bill which was actually useful to the farmers. But it didn't go through because probably we couldn't market it well enough for the audience or the stakeholders to appreciate the fact that it was useful to them. And hence it didn't go. And then, of course, you have these 5 C's which are inhibiting factors, the CBI, the CBI, and of course another E is added, but anyway, CBI, CAG, CVC, CIC, and courts. Very difficult. But having said that, my contention is it can be made to happen. Because if you look around, there are a number of civil servants. I interacted with a lot of industry. As head of the project monitoring group, I remember we were fast-tracking projects all above 1,000 crore, each of them. At a time when scams were breaking out. It was 2013 when I was summoned from Cambodia. I had gone there to attend a conference and asked to head this project monitoring group. I distinctly remember when I went to the cabinet secretary, no one had a clue. They said, we have picked you up to fast-track projects. At a time when decision-making was virtually impossible. Every civil servant was not taking a decision. I was asked to head. And as soon as I walked out of the cabinet secretary's room, I got a call from the chairman of a public sector bank. Boss, he was a class fellow of mine. Boss, Chidambaram is announcing you as head of a project monitoring group. I said, wo marenge, mujhe marwayenge. But how do I get out of it? I use technology to the hilt. And I'm now switching over to aspects which probably may interest you. We digitized everything. So if an industry had a problem, they could go to that portal and write their problem on the portal. That problem would automatically flow to the related joint secretary of the ministry. He was mandated to comment on that. Then I used to have tripartite discussion. And all I said was, Bhaiya, take a decision. Don't sit on a file. It worked. I'm cutting a long story short. It worked. In 15 months of UPA government, UPA 2 government scams were breaking out, we got clearance worth 5 lakh crores worth of project. People ask me, how did you get it? How did you manage it? I said, simple. It's very simple. No matter how inefficient I am, to the public, I'd like to appear to be efficient. So if the world knows that I'm sitting on a file for so many hours, so many seconds, so many days, then I'll put that file. Believe me, one cabinet minister lost her job because she was sitting on files worth more than 53,000 crores. She lost her job. It hit the headlines. And I'm telling you the background, details are there in my book. Now, why am I telling you all this? I'm telling you all this is, when you approach the government, my suggestion to all of you is, don't approach individually. Move through an organization, FICCI, whichever organization you have, move through organization, so that you remain in the background. Because I've seen it from very close quarters. Some governments can be very vindictive, whereas you have all good intentions, but sometimes it is misunderstood, so move. Second, you push the government into making the processes transparent. Why? Because it doesn't require a single penny. It doesn't require money. Making things transparent is not that difficult. I did it. In coal ministry and education ministry, we didn't have a file of paper. I distinctly remember one day Mr. Kumar Mangalam Birla came to meet me, and he didn't see any file on my table. He said, sir, how is it that you don't have any file on the table? I said, we have digitized everything. What do you mean? Everything digital, for a variety of reasons, but more to save my back. Because if everything is transparent, MLF ID cannot be attributed to me. And then things will pace up. Then he turned toward his two CEOs and said, why can't we do it in our offices? I said, you won't be able to do it. He said, why? I said, I can afford to be transparent, you can't afford to be transparent. But the government should become transparent. That is what you should push. Why? Because, you ask for tax concessions. Government is hard pressed for money. Every government is. But for you, time is money. So if your sanctions, clearances happen on time, you save that money. You won't save that so much on taxes as on this. I saw it with my own eyes. I did it and I saw it. What we did in coal block auctions, we auctioned coal blocks worth 1.76 lakh crores, not a finger pointed. Why? Because everything was transparent. It's not that I didn't commit mistakes. I did. I committed a number of mistakes. But since every decision was put on the portal, within an hour I used to get a call, sir, ये आपने क्या कर दिया? ने क्या कर दिया? खोलो भाई फाइल देखो, हमारे पे गड़बड़ हुई. अगले दिन सुबह प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस की, before the journalist gets to know what wrong I've done, I used to announce मेरे से गलती हो गई. और ठीक कर दिया. So my suggestion to you, one is push for transparency in processes, push for using technology in processes, and I'm working with an organization in Haryana in a slightly different context. they are planning to digitize all the processes where a common man interfaces with the government. They have identified about 500 such processes. They've already digitized 300 processes where the common man doesn't have to go to any government office. You know, all the corruption delays are because of the physical interface. You eliminate physical interface, which can be done now because of technology, and it will be removed. So that is one. Second, when I was Export Commissioner, Government of India, way back in 97, 98, you know, all the leading exporter organizations used to come to me and come up with a beautiful document, 100-page document. Same document was given to the minister, to the secretary, to the export commissioner, to the undersecretary, perhaps even to Chaprasi. Same. So I used to tell him, भाई आप अपना product जब market करते हैं तो consumer को देखते हैं ना कि वो कितना पढ़ता है, लिखता है, देखेगा नहीं देखेगा. अरे भाई क्यों देते हैं आप ये पोथा सबको? Because ultimately they will end up in the table of undersecretary. No one will read it. So as you examine your consumer while producing a product, you must examine the person that you are talking to and give him only that much, so that he has that much time. And most importantly, as I started with, don't treat every civil servant similarly. I can tell you, and I've had enough experience in the government and now outside the government, there are good people around. There are very well-meaning people around. Don't go with a prejudice or a bias to meet a civil servant. Do some research and find out who amongst them listens, who amongst them works. That is a research that you should do. You can do actually. And then you will be able to reach out to the right person and will be able to talk. See, the tragedy is that we are so prejudiced against each other that we feel that बिना पैसे दिए काम नहीं चलेगा, which is absolutely absurd, I see it. I mean, I know of so many people who do without it and take pleasure in doing it. Take pleasure. I'm sure some of you would have had that experience also. The tragedy is we don't talk sufficiently about those good people. How about हम मुक्त कंठ से जब बुराई करते हैं तो मुक्त कंठ से तारीफ क्यों नहीं करते? Why can't we praise good work, whether it's a civil servant or otherwise? Because what does a civil servant get? You know, someone asked me, I was doing this scheme called Rashtriya Swasthya Bima Yojana, a health insurance scheme, arguably the biggest health insurance scheme, now morphed into Ayushman Bharat. And I had gone, I was doing this scheme, suddenly this scheme came to be recognized world over as one of the finest schemes of the world. So when Obama took over as the president of the US, his advisor rang me up. He said, Mr. Swarup, can you come over to Washington and give us a brief presentation on health insurance because we are struggling with it. So I tried to wriggle out. I said, our context is different. What will I do? He insisted. So in one of my visits to World Bank, I went over to Brookings Institute, which houses these advisors, and I make this presentation on RSPY. And they were, you know, government representatives. They were also from our own mission. Then they were representatives of Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, many foundations. So after the presentation like this, of course, they didn't have a bar. We had a cup of coffee, went out. And over a cup of coffee, this gentleman from Gates Foundation walks up to me and asks me, Mr. Swarup, you are a civil servant, but you seem to be very passionate about the scheme. What is the government giving you beyond your salary? So I asked him a counter question. Gates Foundation gives millions of dollars to poor countries. What do you get out of it? He said, well, that's a job, but more than that, we derive a lot of satisfaction in helping the poor. I said, you answered your own question. This scheme is meant for the poorest of the poor. Those that survived into the scheme and their families, their good wishes come back to me somehow, anyhow. That's good enough a kick for me to do what I'm doing. And then I narrated an incident to him, illustrate what I meant. You know, in this scheme, we had these smaller hospitals, not Maxes and Apollos, that were impaneled. So in one of the visits, I used to visit these hospitals a lot. I was talking to a beneficiary patient. Suddenly, I heard a very feeble voice from behind. I turned around and saw a very old lady. She couldn't sit. She was calling me, Beta, idhar aao. So I turned around, went to her. Since she couldn't sit, I bent down. Mata ji, aap theek to hain? She tells me, Beta, main bahut takleef mein hu, lekin in hospital walon ne mera khayal rakha. Then I said, Mata ji, phir to aap theek ho jayengi. नहीं बेटा मेरी तो उम्र हो गई है मैं ऊपर वाले के पास जाऊंगा. I said नहीं आप ठीक हो जाएंगे. नहीं बेटा मेरा कोई नहीं है इस दुनिया में ना भाई है ना बेटा. मैं तो भीख मांगती थी. मैं बीमार पड़ गई. मेरा पड़ोसी था वो भी भीख मांगता था. उसने तुम्हारा एक कार्ड देखा. दिस वाज स्मार्ट कार्ड बेस्ड इंश्योरेंस स्कीम. ये कार्ड देखा मुझे यहाँ ले आया. ये अस्पताल वाले मेरी सेवा कर रहे हैं मुझसे पैसे भी नहीं मांगते. मेरे पास है भी नहीं देने को. I told her नहीं माता जी आपको पैसे देने की जरूरत नहीं होगी. आप जाएंगी घर जाएंगी. This carried on for a while and then she tells me नहीं बेटा मेरी उम्र इतनी हो अब मैं ऊपर वाले के पास जाऊंगा. और ऊपर वाले जाके एक बात जरूर कहूंगी, तुम्हारी स्कीम बहुत अच्छी है. You know, I call them as my Bharat Ratnas, and I have many such Bharat Ratnas in my service career. That keeps me going. It gives me goosebumps as I narrate this to you. So I keep telling my colleagues, यार सोच लो क्या करना है. Your true worth will be determined after you retire. पहले तो सब जी हुजूरी करेंगे, अरे साहब आपसे अच्छा अधिकारी ना आया है ना आएगा. रिटायरमेंट के बाद मालूम करो तो असलियत मालूम पड़ेगी. I am discovering that. I am earning out of what I did during my service. I couldn't earn much as a civil servant, but I am glad that I am earning so much. I am extremely thankful to Mr. Suresh to have given me this opportunity to come and interact with all of you. There are not many stories to tell, but I think you would rather go to the bar than listen to me. Thank you very much. Thank you.
A very fascinating story. I don't think I have a story like him to narrate. So if you want to go to bar, it's open for you. So I think Suresh has made my job a little more difficult because he tried to tell me that you must talk about the economy and where India is going. And I think, as you all know, forecasting and predicting is fraught with risk and a very risky business. All of us are watching football. Pele said in late 70s that an African team will win the World Cup by 2000. And see, they haven't even made to semi-finals. It's not that Pele was wrong. The African team and their talent is absolutely on dot. Today, even as we speak, there are 50 African origin players in different teams outside Africa. I think what Pele didn't realize that it's not the player or the actor who decides. It is the ecosystem as important. I think Africa could not provide the ecosystem which was required to create a world-class team. And that applies to industry and countries as well. So I think when we speak about India, where India will go, it's very difficult to predict. So what I would rather not like to hazard any guesses how the economy will unfold. But what I can do is talk about the mega trends and how the mega trends impact us and how we as industry leaders can leverage those mega trends. Well, India, if you look at it, has always been a story of false steps, number of false steps. I think we have always dazzled to deceive. Right, for last 40 years, we have been touted as a next big economy, but hasn't happened. We had our share of brilliant, I think what we did in IT is unbelievable. We built up a $200 billion industry from nowhere. What we did in green revolution, white revolution, unbelievable. What we did in telecom, I think we achieved in 10 years what US did achieve in 100 years. So I think they're all very positives. But we are not consistent, and I think always things have gone wrong. Then what makes me that this time things will be better? I think we have to look at it, the whole thing holistically. The biggest positive factor which is in favor of India is geopolitical alignment. If you look at the tiger economies, if you look at China, all the growth was driven by the geopolitical alignment. The US and the entire Western world was trying to help them to build because they wanted to create a counter to the rest of in a Cold War regime. I think today, I'd say a lot of you guys must have read the book Alchemist. It's India's alchemist movement. All stars are aligning the way they should align. And that alignment is going to give you a huge opportunity because as a result of this alignment, the China plus one thing has come up. All of us keep talking about it. Now look at China. They export almost $370 billion worth of, $3.7 trillion worth of exports. We are less than 10%. If you could even get 10% share from there, you would have doubled your exports. So the opportunity is huge and somebody is trying to help you with that. So that is one mega trend I think we can't ignore. And what I'll do is I'll share in my own limited way how we are trying to leverage the mega trend, and all of us have to perhaps work towards that. The second big mega trend is the climate crisis. Now, you can look at it as a threat or as an opportunity. The predictions are saying that about $7 trillion worth of investment will come in India from now till 2050. Now, just imagine if that kind of money comes in the economy, the rub-off it has on the industry is huge. The opportunity of what renewables offers to us is phenomenal. On top of it, if you look at the biggest bane of Indian economy has been the crude import, the fossil fuel import. all our problems of inflation, all our problems of balance of payment, I think the path may be difficult, but when if we reach the end of net zero, if by 2040, 50, 60% of my energy comes from non-fossil fuel, I think we would have licked the problem of balance of payment. There's a prediction, McKinsey says the cost of power will come down by 1 rupee in 2050 values. So virtually you're halving a cost of power. Now imagine, whenever we talk about India being uncompetitive, we talk of 2 or 3 things. We talk about power, we talk about inflation, we talk about currency. I think moment you do these things right, there is a huge opportunity. Now I go one step beyond. The green energy is again a very mineral intensive business. Putting solar is not easy. A solar power requires 3 to 4 times more minerals than a normal boiler and power plant will require. So what does it mean? The world will require, even if you go by today's lithium and cobalt deposits, they won't last you till 2030 also. If you go by the current consumption of copper, you won't have copper in next 10 years. You will fall 25% short on your copper demand. All the minerals you're talking about are not going to be there. You talk about wood resources, you talk about... So the issue is the world has to start looking at recycle in a big way. What we call circular economy. At the end of the day, you have to start recycling back. You cannot dump a car into junk. You can't dump aluminium after using into... They are almost recyclable materials. E-waste, 50 million tons of e-waste. The amount of gold you can get from e-waste, the amount of copper you can get from the e-waste is huge. And one thing is given, any recycle industry is highly labor intensive. And that's where India scores. You may do any technology, but ultimately you have to sort out, you have to segregate, you have to chop off. So to my mind, the second thing, the rub-off of this whole green revolution is circular economy. And that could be a huge opportunity for the Indian industry. If you build up the right supply chains, I think India can be a global capital for circular economy, whether it is textiles, whether it is metals, whether it is minerals. Fourth factor, which I think is very important in the Indian context is, I think, whatever, Mr. Swarup is the best person, he talked about the government, but I think right now, there are a couple of things which are happening right. We have found a very elegant solution to the problem of World Trade Organization. This whole PLI scheme, 2 lakh crores worth of PLI scheme is a very nice way of giving an industry support them in gestation time. If you can do that, you can get the right scales. I think the industry has to build the right scales, right, and then you can get the right cost structure. So to my mind, macroeconomically, I think there are few things happening which will make India hopefully succeed unless something really goes wrong. To my mind, if ever there is an opportunity of succeeding, this is the time. What I would like to do is how we are trying to leverage, and every business is different. So there is no one size fits all. What I do in my business will not work in your business. But what perhaps we can think of is that only a theoretical concept or is there a practical way of doing it? So I'll just share with you. I used to, before I moved to my current job, I was to run a textile business, which was the Grasim industry. And in that business, how we have used these opportunities to create a competitive advantage. So I'll just share with you that if possible. How do I get it? Slides? Oh, sorry, yeah. So, like I was saying, environmental sustainability, can you hear me? That's fine. As an opportunity, now we had a viscose fiber business which is made from wood pulp. It makes, a lot of women will know for the women's attire, it's an outstanding fiber, very soft fiber. It is renewable feedstock, whereas polyester is made from fossil fuel. But the problem with that, it had a production chemistry which was very hazardous chemicals. And it was labeled very badly because in the Second World War, it was started in Germany when they had no cotton, they started viscose. So the image was very, had a problem. What we repositioned the entire business onto a green basis. I said, look, this is one business, there is a green feedstock, there is a green product, there is a great application. Problem is manufacturing. We said we can rectify that. We committed $170 million investment only in closed looping. We said no effluent will go out from this product. So a lot of money went. But I think by making one part of the value chain viable, the entire business became a green business. And what did it do? Cotton, all of us thought was is a natural product, but cotton is the most unviable product. The amount of land you require for cotton, world doesn't have. The amount of water required for cotton, it's 15 to 20 times more than what you require for viscose. The amount of pesticide you use for cotton. So the world did not know. So I think we started educating that, look, there is an issue about sustainability. What you think is sustainable is not sustainable, and what you don't think is sustainable. What we did was, we said, okay, let's start end-to-end sustainability. So where do I source my feedstock from? So we got an NGO. You audit the companies and tell us who is the most sustainable supply chain. And this Canadian NGO ultimately found our business. They give dark green shirt, light green shirt, yellow shirt, red shirt, and they gave us a dark green shirt. Whereas all the Chinese guys got yellow shirt. All the Indonesian guys got yellow shirt. Now what happened? We could deny a competition access to market. Now Zara can't go and buy with a yellow shirt. Or Zara can't go and buy with a red shirt. They have to buy with the green shirt. Now we can, if you look at you create a disadvantage into advantage, an opportunity. Then we said, okay, we had a factory. Every year that factory used to stop for 2 months because of lack of water. We worked on a zero water scheme. First time we made a viscose plant with 20% of the total water consumption. Not only I got my water consumption right, my sustainability claim became better. The factory has never stopped in the last 6 years. Every year, 2 months it used to stop. So the amount of money you make by running a factory for 2 months more makes a huge difference. I'm trying to say, if you look at the problem from a different perspective, you find different solutions. I could have always said there's a big problem, it's a compliance issue. Mr. Birla gave me so much of investment. He didn't do that. Then we said, okay, I'll talk about circular fashion again. We did that also. And third, then we said, okay, let us see what cotton has but viscose does not have. And that is something we started from, I call a flask to factory. We started from a basic process. And in 10 years' time, we have developed a process where viscose has the same quality of cotton, but does not have that pesticide, does not have that water. What have I done? We have opened a 5 times bigger market. So what did we do? Once I got an eco label certificate, we launched a product called Liva Eco. And first time, we got a 20 to 30% premium on the normal fibers. So people say nobody pays for eco-friendly, people do pay for it, as long as there is a compelling logic. So we got a premium on our product. We pioneered the idea of circular fiber because fashion industry is the second most polluting industry after oil. 90 million tons plus of fabric and cloth gets dumped every year. We picked up all the pre and post consumer wastes because cotton is a stronger fiber than viscose. When I remix it, it becomes same strength as viscose. So we became a sink for cotton. And in the whole process, we developed a fiber we call Liva Reviva. And then we were getting up, it was showcased at the London Fashion Show and at the COP26 it was showcased. So we could get a premium on that. But third is most important. By getting those green shirts, by getting those certifications, we had a very low-cost competition in Indonesia. It was all the government's support. But just because 50 years back, he had deforested the whole plantation, he had moved communities, he could not get that certificate. So we denied market access to somebody who could have really destroyed the business. So no branded company can buy from somebody who has done these kinds of things. So I think this is what one has to look at, creating a competitive advantage. And by developing a fiber which is as good as cotton, we developed the market. Viscose is a 6 million ton market. Cotton is 25 million ton market. We opened the business 4 times more. So in a way, converting a constraint to opportunity. The second point was this China plus one. I think all of us talk about it, but it's very important. It will not come easy. China, if you all must, all of you are so accomplished, must have seen China. It's not easy to match them. But what we did was, we really mapped everything which China exports and which I don't export. Everything which China makes, I don't make. And then we found out that we don't have technology. We can't make those products. And we keep saying we'll get the China plus one. And we found that in India, if you see in textile, there is a woven and a they're woven and the knit fabrics. China dominates on knits. India dominates on woven. So we said in India, if one leader starts, it gets replicated very fast. So we took upon us as a leader to bring in best-in-class technology, get knits which are as good as Chinese knits, which have shrinkage lower than Chinese knits, and we will convert the entire market from China to India by creating a capability on the ground. And in India, if one guy creates the capability, 100 guys will follow tomorrow. And that's how, so we have got a next growth engine for our business. Knits, China exports 2,000 tons per day, we do 200 tons per day. So just by doing that, you could do 10 times. Third, I think, is Suresh spoke about the digitization. But I always say, we always talk of, we get into jargons very fast. Now, digitization for the heck of it is not going to help you. Digitization, just because talking IoT, you have to see what advantage it is creating for you. I call it idiosyncratic digitization. It has to be designed for your process and your plant. You just can't put number of IoTs, number of digital thing, and what will you do? Your efficiency of the plant goes from 97% to 98%. 1% doesn't make a difference. China can cut you by 10%. So what we did in our business is, we said where I can create a competitive advantage. So what I found that in the fashion industry, people are very worried about if somebody is buying in Harrods or in a Zara shop in London, they want to know if this jacket or this gown, is it made in a sweatshop? Is it made in an unsustainable way? What I did was we applied blockchain. So moment my wood is cut in the forest in Canada, I would give it a unique number. And the whole blockchain was tracing it till the time it goes to the end shop. And there was a QR code. You scan the QR code and you can find there itself that every step of the process has been sustainable and has been done in the most ethical way. By doing that, again we got huge market share, because this was a proprietary technology, everybody could not do it. People could do it from fabric to garment stage, but nobody could do from fiber to fashion. I used to call it fiber to fashion chain, and we did end to end. So that digitization is something which created a huge advantage. Second, I think in India, all of us know, if you say a textile value chain, the fiber guys are very big. Reliance makes polyester, we make viscose, cotton, we are the biggest in the world. But the guys who really convert that into fabric are the weavers, which are 3, 4, 5 lakh small weavers. They have no scale. They can't do innovations. We applied digitization to get, we called LAPF, Levi Accredited Partner Forum. So all those weavers, we got them integrated through digital value chain. And we set up a R&D center only for the customers, not for ourselves. So we have our own, we had 5 R&D centers. One R&D center we called TRADC, which was doing research for the downstream. I would do research for a weaver, I would do research for a fabricator, I would do research for a garmenter also. And by doing that, we created the market, we grew market threefold. In the whole process, every partner of the value chain benefited. So that is how we use the digital and India needs that. India has, everywhere unorganized sector is much bigger than the organized sector. And if you have digital in the right way, you can integrate and create a huge scale. Third is, I think, having done 1 and 2, the third is a work in progress. But if you look at typically how a fashion value chain works, Zara wants to make a jacket and launch it in this season. He will go to his buying house. Buying house will go to the fabricator, to the garmenter. Garmenter will go to fabricator. The end-to-end it takes 90 days from India. Chinese do it in 30 to 32 days. Now, once you have a digital platform, because I created a digital platform end-to-end, you can just have your partners. Zara can put on your website, I want X million pieces at this price. Let all your partners do an online bidding, like an open bidding, and you can do what is happening in 90 days, you can do, perhaps do in 1 or 2 days, you can finish out the bidding. You can condense the time. So what Mr. Swarup was saying, speed is important. I think we don't, the value of speed. I think speed to market, we have to trade off cost with speed. Sometimes Zara now launches 24 designs in a year. That means 15 days every design comes. They have factories in China, the transit time is 30 days. So you are often missing out, they have to airfreight the stuff. So I think you have to see the end-to-end cost, not at the cost of production itself. And finally, it makes a lot of sense to have speed at the cost of little higher production cost. And on that basis, I don't know whether you have seen that, I will say, Adidas has put what they call speed factories. These factories are decentralized factories. Earlier they used to put the plants in the lowest cost, China, Vietnam, this is nothing. Today, speed is important, innovation is important, so they have put all the automated factories with online, with 3D printing, with AutoCADing. They have brought down the whole time frame from months to days. And they can change design, speed to market, and I think the whole game is changing. It's a matter of time. What digitization will do is will create the country advantage will get removed. It will get very, very distributed kind of manufacturing world over. And so fundamentally what I was saying is, rather than an activity-based digitization, we must go for an outcome-based digitization. That's the first thing. You understand what you want, what your process is, and then design it for that, rather than taking a off-the-shelf solution. Even getting the first one, IBM could not do it for me. Microsoft could not do it for me. Finally, we had to get in some small freelancers for Bangalore, and we worked it out that way, because they will want to sell an off-the-shelf solution. That's how it works. Third, I think very important, which we as Indians have to understand is this: we always bring down everything to what I call molecule selling. That I tell people that I am selling sulfuric acid, I am selling viscose fiber, I am selling this. We don't sell value. At the end of the product I sell does a work. And I always give the example of sulfuric acid at 98% is X rupees. You purify it to make battery grade, it becomes 3X rupees. You make it to purify to make electronic grade, becomes 10X. Every specialty chemical understands this very well, but we don't understand this in our other businesses. I think we need to understand this power of value. So viscose, first company, we learned from Intel Inside. We said, no, I will not call it a viscose fiber, I will call it a Leva brand. That when I say that you are wearing a great jacket, the fiber inside that is Leva. You don't ask me it's viscose, it's cotton, doesn't matter. I'll give you A, B, C, D, E benefits. So it's about benefit selling. I think all of us have to understand. I think in India we haven't understood the power of branding. I have done a study, a lot of them which are reserved for small scale sector in India are the biggest money churners in USA, because they are able to protect them through IPR. They're able to protect them through branding. So I think something which we need to do very strongly is the manufacturing has to understand the value of service and branding. And I think that's the way you have to create value. And wage arbitrage versus value-added manufacturing. A very classic case is Turkey, if you take. Turkey, manpower costs us 2 to 3 times the Indian manpower. Their currency is in a mess. Every 5 years there is a thing happens. They have a most unstable political system. But they are able to service the best of the customers in Europe. The textile industry is the most competitive industry. So we can't, they also can blame the government, they can blame, but they don't do, because they understand that the product they are making, the quality they are making is outstanding. Customers wait and they ultimately go back to them. So I think investing in the right technology and right frame of mind is what is very important. And to my mind, we all of us have to proactively obsolescence. We must make our own products obsolete and try to innovate, and that is something which goes on and on. Yeah. So I think if I have to summarize, and it is more manufacturing driven, so if there are some service industry people I wouldn't, but this is largely manufacturing driven. I think what we need to do, one is we need to build global skills. Whatever you do, it's important. I think the second point is very important. We always believe that I should develop everything in-house, do myself. I think we must understand it is always better to inorganically acquire knowledge than organically develop it, if it is possible. So like when we acquired Novelis, we knew that that know-how will take me years to develop. So we had a bulk aluminum business, which was much smaller. We acquired a 3x size company, but we got the technology from that company. So we have to understand, it is today if you go to cement, Germany, the Indian cement consumption is 10 times the German cement consumption. Ultratech cement consumption is 4 times Germany as a country. But all the know-how comes from Germany. Every equipment, every instrument, everything comes from there. So I think it is knowledge which drives the value rather than the volume which drives the value. So I think we need to have market access and know-how very important. Whatever we do, I think the cost curve, we must build global cost curves. We never build local cost curves. And we must always make sure you are in top 2 or tops in the global cost curve. We call it top 10 percentile. I think that's something which was, whatever happens, the cost will see you through at the end of the day. Where supply chain, I think I use this word, we have always looked at supply chain as a cost reducing. I think I call it agile, adaptable, aligned supply chain, AAA supply chain. I think today cost is a given. The supply chains have to deliver agility, deliver adaptability, because today black swan events are happening every third day. Look at the number of black swan events which have happened in last, it will become 10 to 20 times more. So I think we need to develop supply chains which are far more, which are based on risk mapping. You map your risks. There is a very classic case when Japan-Korea trade war happened. Japan used to supply a small chemical to Samsung, $160 million turnover. But they're the only supplier. And by blocking that, the Samsung's some $50 billion mobile phone business came to a standstill. Now that is where the importance of supply chain adaptability and mapping is important. They never mapped that. This is a small amount. It's a, when you say ABC, it's a Z category. But even a Z category also can stop the main supply. So I think it's very important to have build supply chains. And with the partnerships. I spoke about industry 4.0, but the second point is very important, the cross-industry learning. I moved from FMCG to chemicals. When I moved in my earlier job, chemicals industry will say capital output ratio is 1. Where FMCG only works on how negative working capital. But believe it or not, because I had that mindset, I could replicate that in a chemical business. So I think it's very important because you go without any baggage and it works. So I think it's always good to get some lateral thinking into a process. Again, see, it's about what I spoke about, the environmental compliance. See, this sustainability, you can take it as a compliance, or you take it as that I will shape the whole industry. I will take leadership. It makes a difference. I think we chose from compliance to shaping the agenda. You shape the agenda, you will drive the industry in a different way. We went ahead and built up global standards. And I think the last one is very important. At the end, people matter. So I think the discretionary effort of the people is what makes a difference. So I think that comes through your. Yeah. I will not go much deeper into it, but I say one thing which we as an industry have to understand. In today's world, and more with climate crisis, the black swan events are increasing too much. The natural disasters have grown 10x more than before. I think risk mapping and risk and management and risk analysis is the most important part of the business. It should become a part of the business process. And then design your system based on that. So I think there are various ways of doing it. But the idea I'm leaving behind with this thing is, this is a Samsung theory. The chairman keeps asking, where is the next lurking danger? Where is the next risk is going to come? You must keep always looking for the next disaster and then plan accordingly so that you're not caught unawares. And this is what I was talking about the Adidas factory, where let's look at the transition. From time to market, 18 months, they got, and let me be honest, this experiment has failed. They're going to shut those factories. But it failed because they didn't analyze properly. But it's a matter of time, 10 years later, this will become the way of doing business. They reduced time from 18 months to less than a week. Employees 1,000 to 160. Low factor, so location becomes, so nobody will ever go to China and put a factory if this kind of thing works. And if you want to see how their factory looks like, I'll just show you. There was one, yeah, I'll just show you this. It doesn't, see, this is how the whole factory comes. So they had, where it takes you months to make model, it was either digital twins, virtual modeling, that saved a huge amount of time. Computerized knitting, they all soles were done by 3D printing and kind of a thing. And I mean, it's a great concept. It takes time to refine, but that's the thinking. And the world will go to a large number of distributed factories, very efficient and cost effective. So I think these are some of the thoughts I thought I'll share with you. And everyone has to find his own recipe. And I am sure if things go well, India will realize its full potential. Thank you so much.
to come to the stage and take a seat. We'll do a 15 minutes Q&A, if everybody's okay with that. And Mr. R. Suresh, if you would like to also moderate it for everybody.
Once again, thank you for patient listening and absorption that you have done of the two very, very insightful speech. I made a lot of notes, but I thought it's better for the cross-section of the audience today to ask questions to Anil ji and Dilip. Without taking much time, I must tell you that both of them asked me, what is the background of the audience that we are going to talk to before coming in here? I told them, look, this is the most eclectic mix of people drawn from startups, SMEs, big companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, professionals, bankers, lawyers, doctors, private equity specialists, and people from the media, service industry. Then I said best is to talk Indian economy as a whole and manufacturing. As we said, the trend is shifting towards manufacturing. So Dilip talked about manufacturing. So I would just want to set the ball rolling and complete the whole thing by 15, 20 minutes. So I have one simple question to Mr. Anil Swarup to start with. There's so much talk about Government of India doing a great job supporting the economic growth, particularly the current dispensation. The PLI policy really is remarkable. Everybody I speak to in the industry, they say PLI is very helpful. You get 5% of the revenue, incremental revenue straight on as a government support. Do you think the government policies today is back center stage pushing the industry, or it is the industry which is really driving growth in electronics and manufacturing, chemicals and so on?
We must understand the limitations of the government very clearly. I think all the growth that has come around in the country since the 90s, because real growth happened after that, may have been on account of some of the policy decisions taken by the government. And government will continue, more governments will come and go. But the real driver is the industry, actually. So if anything has happened, the credit actually goes to the industry. And as a part of the government, I used to say, the primary role of the government is to play the role of a facilitator. Make the life of the industry simple and easy. That's the bottom line, because they will drive on their own. Government doesn't have to push anything. I think we are greater trouble creators than anything else. So the job is to see how I can help industry. In fact, when I was Coal Secretary Government of India and when we did these coal block auctions, thereafter when I was called for consultations and all, I used to tell very clearly that government should ensure that the industry is not troubled in whichever way. And then the industry will flourish. We don't have to push them. I mean, I was not in favor of subsidy here and subsidy there and this and that. Make life easy for the industry. That is one. Second, I mean, I may be sounding very different here. I am not a great believer in road shows. Because I felt that instead of Government of India going and tell the world over that please come here and invest, it would be better if the industry goes and tells them that we are comfortable there and people will come and invest. So why should the government go and say, and I used to jokingly say, please tell me, this lion of Make in India has rode so much, how much distance has it traveled? We have to look at these fundamentals of it. Have I made life easy for the industry? And I don't have to answer this question. No one in the government should answer this question. The only person to answer that question is the industry itself. So how can I used to repeatedly ask this question of myself, am I making life easy for the industry? And whatever little that I could achieve was making that life easy, whether in this state of UP for a short time or in Government of India. I said, I'm there to help you. And sometimes people used to ask me, yaar, tum monitor nahi karte ho. Maine kaha, am I wiser than the others to monitor others? Who am I to monitor? I ask people, can I help you? If that becomes the attitude of the government, I have absolutely no doubt about the potential of industry in this country. The question should be asked is not pushing, but can I help you? Can I be of assistance? That itself will help the industry to go. So I'm not commenting on what the government is doing now or not. I think there are a lot many positives of the government. But fundamentally, I'm concerned about still the troubles that the industry has. And the only concern that government is to ask the man where the shoe pinches. I shouldn't be doing anything on my own. Ask the industry where the shoe is pinching and do everything to ensure that pinching goes. So that's what I believe. I think government is doing a lot, but this is one area I feel that we still need streamlining of processes. We still need situations where industry can freely and frankly express itself without any fear. One may agree or disagree, that's a different matter. But if I don't allow them to speak up, then I will never get, I, as a civil servant, even as Secretary Government of India, my philosophy is very simple. I may totally disagree with you, but why should I deprive myself of the wisdom that you may have? Because ultimately I am going to decide. I will say no to you because I am the decision maker, but by not allowing you to tell me what you want to tell me, I am depriving myself of that wisdom. So whereas some phenomenal work is happening on various fronts, this is one area where I'd like to believe, and industry can play a very important role in that, by pushing issues which do not actually hurt anybody, but telling. And I tell you, I have worked within the government. This government wants simplification. It's not that they don't want simplification, but simplification doesn't give you publicity, So you have to push that these are the processes. If this process is changed this way, or this is digitized, probably we'll have lesser problems. And look at what has happened in the income tax. It has improved remarkably. So there are various areas where improvement have come about. I think we'll have to follow that, pursue that, and ensure that the procedures are simplified even further.
Excellent. I have one question to Dilip and then set the questions to the audience. Request you to shoot questions to them. Dilip, I know you went into great depth on transformation in manufacturing. Digital factories, speed factories, risk management, supply chain optimization, mapping supply chain, fantastic. But my question is not on manufacturing. With the audience diverse interests in mind, you are not a millennial by any stretch of imagination. Digital seems to be a private fiefdom of millennials. They are more flexible gadgets and gizmos that they work with. How have you as an individual adapted to transforming the viscose staple fiber business or the chemical businesses that you have managed? So as a senior leader, do you find it difficult to even go near these millennials and talk digital stuff? Or you say, look, firstly, it is common sense. I know what is required. I know what is required to compete China. So are you now a reborn millennial yourself?
Very good question. And I think, like Mr. Swarup said, the government is an enabler. Digital also is an enabler for the business. And I always look upon it, how well it's like anybody can buy a Ferrari, but everybody can't be a Schumacher. So digital is something which everybody has it. And the leader's role is to understand how you can create value out of it. And it has been my principle, and I think why digital? I am of a vintage of late 70s. Last 40, 45 years, the kind of changes we have seen. When I was studying, you won't even know there was a slide rule. I don't know if anybody has seen it. From a slide rule to an AI is a huge transformation. I think what is required for people, leaders to understand is what drives value by a particular technology. And that does not require you need to know the technology. There are enough guys in the world who can give you technology. We don't ask right questions. So what I have learned and what example I was giving, and I have found millennials will help you in implementing it, but they will not be able to ask the questions with the expertise and knowledge of which you get it. And I think that's where the whole difference makes. And
excellent. People from the audience, there's one there. Kevin? Anyone can pass the mic. Please feel free.
This question is to Mr. Anil Swarup. I think if the needle has ever moved from being an undeniable stereotype to an undeniable brand, you've done that today for your community of civil servants. I think all of us have a very different opinion of civil servants only after listening to you. Would you agree, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
But because we heard you, we feel that. I want to ask you a question. How much of it is because, how many Anil Swarups are there? Because we heard you, we started thinking that way. Is it that they don't have a voice? There are more honest people out there than not so honest, is my first question to you. And then I'll take the liberty to cheat Suresh. I'll also get Mr. Dilip Gaur and I'll ask him that digitization, you talked of idiosyncratic digitization. If digitization was not there, the technology was not there, then is it possible that we would have never become what we are now talking of, Indo-synchronization with digitization? That today we are saying, we are talking that we have made leaps and bounds, gone ahead of many countries. It's because the technology is there. So had the technology not been there, what would have happened? We would have still been in the dark ages, is my question to you.
You want to take that? Okay. Yeah. See, if one thing I can tell you with my 38 experience in the service, there are many, many Anil Swarups in the service. But that didn't really matter to me. It didn't really matter to me. Irrespective whether they were there or not there, I had to take a call about myself. And I had always believed that I can't do much to others. I can do a lot to myself. And if I were to do to others, I would have been in serious trouble because politicians, they are civil servants of all shapes, sizes, good, bad, and ugly. But if you are what you are, and that's what I write in my book, the last couplet of ethical dilemmas of civil servant is what inspired me was, खुदी कुकर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले खुदा बंदे से खुद पूछे बता तेरी रजा क्या है. So, whereas there are many of them, and I keep asking now post-retirement, that why aren't those people visible? By nature, civil servants दिखाई कम दिया करते हैं बुनियाद के पत्थर जमीन में दब गए जो इमारत उन्हीं पे कायम है. They are on the background. They don't do work. But what we need to do now in the change environment is talk about those good people. Let them become visible. Let them demonstrate to others that good people and ethical people exist and perform so as to inspire the youngsters. And I go around the country talking to youngsters, telling them, you can do well. That needs to be demonstrated. Unfortunately, we only talk about, you look at newspapers, they only talk about corrupt civil servants. They talked about a civil servant being caught. Why can't we talk about Iqbal Singh Chahal? Now he's being spoken about. He's doing a wonderful job here in municipal corporation. There are many, many such officers. My suggestion to all of you is, आप मुक्तकंठ से तारीफ कीजिए उन अधिकारियों की जो अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं. You will find more of them visible. Thank you.
If I got a question right, let me respond. Otherwise, I'll again try. See, I believe digitization is not what is causing the progress. It's the outcome of the progress. If you look at the world in last 200 years, first steam engine was made. Then the society grows. The society grows, then they realize that, look, now we have come to limits of our growth. What do I do next? Then the assembly line came. The whole second revolution came. Assembly line came, then people thought my quality of life has to improve further. Then the computers came, microelectronics came. You saw the Japan's ascendancy happened. Outcome of then the internet came. So I think these are progressions. It doesn't mean that digitization is causing the progress. It is the progress which is causing digitization. The innovations are happening because what we want as human beings. Millennials want to get connected. Young people, societies want to get integrated. The need is there. The need is there, product will be found. That's how the market works. There is a latent need. The difference is there is a latent need and there is a visible need. The need to connect was a latent need which perhaps I think the Facebook fellows found out, and that's how it worked. The need to get product delivered at home was there always. The housewife wanted, but people said, hoga nahi. Amazon found it. When the Walkman came, but for that, while he was playing tennis, he wanted to hear music. Just we happened to be the part of the Sony company, it happened. So I always say, the more and more as a business, we have to look at the unarticulated needs, the nascent needs, and find solutions, and that will happen more and more.
Can I just take the follow-up question, Suresh? Just one small one.
Many hands raising.
Yeah, just one quick one. So JFK was very famous of saying that America is not rich. I mean, America does not have highways, and therefore it is rich. It is rich because it has the highways. And today we didn't have highways. Highways are being built, but we could overcome that and have digital pathways. So I'm just saying the reach and the transparency could happen. Had that not happened, then what would it be? I'm talking in particular about Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile connection and then whatever else, the manifestations of that.
That's the viewpoint. I couldn't. What's the question?
What you're saying is that because the infrastructure is created now,
Yeah.
through technology, which is the digital highway, the progress is imminent.
Yeah.
You are saying the progress causes digitization.
No.
Yeah, because you see,
They're both
how
interlinked.
did the
It's
digital
circular.
start? The
They're
seed of digital
interdependent.
came in microelectronics.
They are interdependent.
It's interdependent. It's a continuous virtuous loop.
Yeah,
So there is
it's a
a
virtuous
virtuous loop which keeps on building, and there is a doom loop which keeps on going down. So I think the microelectronics and internet. So next view was digital. Then now the people are back to physical now. You are again the world is now going back. You have realized that you can't live only in the virtual world. You need to connect physically also. Physical will come. Something else will come. Metaverse will come. The metaverse will be passé. Then metaverse guys will say, what was they doing 10 years back? Yeah. So I think that's what.
There's a question there.
Rakesh, sorry. Samina will come to you.
Yeah, I have a question to both eminent gentlemen, one from the industry and one from the bureaucracy. See, we hear a lot about China plus one, and you both spoke about China plus one.
Yeah.
But really speaking, there are many skeptics. I mean, we know that there is an opportunity, but do you really feel that with a lot of regulations, if you look at China, they can do things overnight. And here we have, being a democracy and a diverse country, things don't move that fast. And China's success has been the speed with which they have implemented. So my question to both of you, one from the industry, one from the bureaucracy, do you really feel that we will take that opportunity? And your predictions, sir, in 10 years from now, where do you see in the context of China plus one?
Right. Yeah. First of all, it is wrong to compare China with India. We keep looking at China. It's a different context altogether. We are a proud democracy and we'll continue to be proud. I'm very clear in my mind. Okay. Second, I'm a die-hard optimist. And I believe that this country is on the right path and we will fulfill our dreams. Maybe not in 10 years, maybe 15 years, maybe longer. The problem that we face here is that we don't look at such projects or events that have happened fast and learn from them. So many things have happened pretty fast in India. And we must try and understand how did that happen and learn and replicate it. So I'm taking my own example. No one ever gave coal block auctions a chance. Everyone thought that coal is a dead game. No? In 2014-15, when I took over as coal secretary, 26 power plants were in crisis. I was summoned to Bombay by the then chief minister, who is now the deputy chief minister, and we had a long chat. By 2016, we were thinking in terms of exporting coal to Bangladesh. It happened. I keep telling everyone, try and understand how did that happen. Swachh Bharat happened. How did that happen? I keep telling everyone, let us not merely, we should analyze where things have gone wrong. We must try and understand how did that happen so fast as it did. It didn't happen so fast in China in this context, but happened very fast in India, and learn from them. So since it has happened, you don't have to go to England, Finland, Holland, Scotland, all over the world. You have to look at the models that are working in India. As Education Secretary, I traveled to 24 states in the first 3 months as Secretary Education. And we picked up 24 out of 110 models that I got to India. You can't imagine the speed with which the replication has happened. Akshay Patra, you ought know about it. When I walked into a school in Lucknow, I didn't know what Akshapatra was. I had midday meal and I couldn't believe the quality of meal. When I went to the headquarters, I got to know that it is Akshapatra who is doing it. Then I flew to Bangalore, spoke to the chairperson there, and asked him, how many students are you feeding? He said, 1 million. What would it take to do it 2 million? He said, I want this from the government. Believe me, I am now as a trustee on Akshapatra. Last month, they informed me they have reached 2 million. So it can happen in India. So I would request all of you is, amongst yourself also, you can have these great things where you can understand how this guy is doing well in these very set of circumstances. Yes, government should do a lot. You can always blame the government for so many things. But there are guys sitting in this room who are performing brilliantly in these set of circumstances. Let us learn from them. That is what we need to do. Not look at China, because China happens that I would hate to be a Chinese, I would rather be an Indian, no? So let us do it the India way, and we know we can do it and we shall do it. Dilip, you.
I'll build on the perspective. See, I spoke about geopolitics. China in late 70s was making shoddy goods. There was no scale. There was nothing. So what happens? But US made sure that they gave an access to the big market. And I always say, market drives innovation. When the demand came, they rose to the occasion. Today, you must have read the Economic Times. China makes 240 million pieces of iPhone. We do a 2 million. That factory in China is having a huge problem. Now, iPhone guys are wanting to make 50% of their iPhones in India. We say it's not possible. But they'll make it happen because they want it. What do they do? Tomorrow, you put a sanction against China, whole iPhone business collapses. So, when I tell you the alchemist moment, it is not a single player. There is a system has to work. System will force you to perform. Because I didn't say who has the strategic depth after China in this. Just imagine that China, people don't want to buy from China. Vietnam doesn't have the size and scale of us. They don't have the intellectual bandwidth which we have. Korea doesn't have it. None of the South countries have it. The only country which has got the domestic market, the scale, size, is India. Talent. So I don't think we will change. And as Mr. Swarup said, there are islands of excellence. Today you see, with all these things going around it. I shouldn't say, because I work for the group. We are the largest aluminium producer in the world. There is a refinery in Jamnagar which is the biggest in the world, with the same kind of a thing. You have an IT industry which is the most efficient in the world. So, I once met, I think we think too much about the government. Sometimes when you do things right, the government won't come and stop you from doing right things. I was in a program in MIT and I met, there was a interaction happening. There was a Nobel laureate, Professor Don Bush, and same debate happened. They said, it's a lot of Indians were there. You talk about China, US talks about China. What's your view about India? He said, I have never been to India. I don't know about India. But one thing I'll tell you, you guys too much talk to your government. It takes two to tango. You don't talk, the government will come after you. He said, that's what we do in US. For us, for every small thing, we run to the government because we believe I'll get some benefit for me or not for him. I think we have to look collectively, we have to look at the industry. You have to be viable, you have to be sustainable, and you have to have the best-in-class technology. You do that, you will succeed. Wage arbitrage is not going to take us anywhere. Germany exports highest in the world with the wage cost 10 times our wage cost. Why? So I think we have to get out of the rationalization mindset. I think at the end of the day, if you do right things, you will get the right outcomes.
Excellent. Yep.
So I'm sure we are all optimistic about the economic growth story of India. And, but I want to hear Mr. Swarup said something about today being the Babri Masjid demolition day, and he had some interesting story about it. And I would like to know about the social justice aspect. Today is also Ambedkarji's Mahan Nirpavan Divas, so I'd like to hear something about that.
You know, the entire story is there in my book, which probably will be offered to you all today. But let me briefly tell you what happened on the 6th of December, 1991. Oh, sorry, 1992. I was Director Information and Public Relations to Mr. Kalyan Singh. and special secretary to him. So on 6th of December morning, it was a Sunday, I went to his residence. I used to go to his residence every morning because my job was to show him paper clippings of what the news items were. I reached there, and for a change, he looked very tense. I was a bit surprised because he normally is a very relaxed man. So all congregation had happened in Faidabad, now Ayodhya. So very soon, say at around 12 o'clock, 12:30, message came that the structure had come down. He was livid, contrary to the general impression. He was livid because he didn't want that. He had his own way of finding solution to the problem. In fact, the ultimate Supreme Court decision was the suggestion made by Mr. Kalyan Singh then. And the conversations that he had with Mr. Advani, who was on the spot, and Mr. Bharat Singh Shekhawat, the Chief Minister of Rajasthan, were indeed revealing. He was livid at them as well. He said, I told you all not to get these people around this structure. I had my own way of finding solution to this problem. I would have found it. Now, you did not agree with me, and look at what has happened. That is what he said. And then he made a very interesting remark. He tells me, Anil, ek kagaz le aao. So I got a piece of paper for him. And he wrote in his own hand कि आज जो कुछ भी हुआ है उसका संपूर्ण उत्तरदायित्व, कंप्लीट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी मैं लेता हूं. किसी भी अधिकारी या अन्य व्यक्ति की इसकी जिम्मेदारी नहीं है. Only he could have done that. Only a person like Kalyan Singh could do that. So contrary to the general impression, Kalyan Singh was against demolition in the way it happened. He didn't want it that way. I was privy to some of the conversations that he had with some of the minorities group. He was trying to convince them that आप तो इसमें नमाज पढ़ते नहीं हो, 12 साल से आपने नमाज नहीं पढ़ी, तो मस्जिद तो है ही नहीं है. And many of them were getting convinced. He said, मैं आपकी भव्य मस्जिद बनवाऊंगा दूसरी जगह, आप इसको छोड़ दो, राम जी की जन्मभूमि है. And let me tell you, and this I am talking about 30 years ago, he was convincing people into believing that let a temple come here and I'll get you another masjid. That's ultimately that happened after so many years. So that is what I wanted to share with you. It's there in my book also.
Any other questions?
Ji.
My name is Prashant.
Ji.
So I just wanted to ask you the percentage of children of civil servants going abroad.
I have no idea. I have no idea. I can tell you. No, I can't guess, but I'll tell you about my personal experience. I must, since you say that. When I joined as Director General Labour Welfare in the Ministry of Labour, within a month I discovered nothing happens in the ministry. Like many other ministries, nothing happened. And here I had an explanation for it. The explanation was that we were all in labour, and hence by definition we couldn't deliver. Because if you delivered, you will be out of labor. So we were perpetually in pain. And the funniest thing was that we used to have tripartite discussion with labor leaders, employers, unions, and us for 2 days, and everyone wanted more. And the worst bit was, in the month of April, it was so hot in Delhi that 35 of us used to go to Geneva to find solution to the labor problems of India. And we never found those solutions. You know why? Because if you found solution next year, you won't go to Geneva. So when I went there for the first time, I found it a total farce. And some of my colleagues cursed me because when I returned, I wrote a very nasty note. I said, there's no reason for us, so many going there in attending Geneva conference, where nothing happens actually. Many international conferences, nothing happened. So this is my experience with that. I don't know how many of them go. I mean, wouldn't you like to go abroad if you get an opportunity to go to a lovely country like Switzerland? Everyone would, so let them go. What's your problem?
Falguni, yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Swarup, and it's been very heartening to hear you because the dwindling faith is now getting restored. But I would like to ask that since there must be more of Mr. Swarups, and we really want the faith to come back, I mean, is there consultancies that you provide to the dwindling structures which are happening? One, and isn't there a way that you could talk more to people in general to let us know about all those good bureaucrats which are sitting there? Because somewhere we do know that the general machinery is run by the bureaucrats and not the politicians. But we really want to hear more. I mean, there has to be a way that you can communicate with the public at large, like us.
Okay,
because we
so
would like
what
to
do I?
hear more.
Okay, so what do I do? Last month I was in Delhi for only 8 days. I was traveling 22 days and talking to various sections of society. I have addressed children of age of 10 years, and then I addressed where in the audience everyone was above 80. And I was trying to tell them that yes, there is a lot of wrong with the civil service. There are many bad bureaucrats, but there are good ones as well. Now, it's a choice with us whether we want to spend our time discussing the nasty ones, the uglier ones, or the good ones. And if you read my book, Ethical Dilemmas of a Civil Servant and No More a Civil Servant, in both these books, I have narrated a number of instances how good work is happening, both by the government officers as well as non-governmental organizations. It's not a monopoly of government or non-government. My contention is, both in the government and outside, some brilliant work is happening. So how about talking of that brilliant work? How about learning? How about feeling convinced that good work can happen because it is happening? That's what I'm doing with limited capacity that I have. If I'm not traveling, I'm doing webinars. I'm doing conferences. I'm talking to people around. Whatever little. I have always believed, जो कुछ आप थोड़ा बहुत कर सकते हैं करिए. But I have also believed, मैं अकेला ही चला था जाने पे मंजिल मगर लोग साथ आते गए कारवां बनता गया. Wow. If you look at Nexus of Good, there are thousands of followers now. So we are trying to bring about a change. I don't know. I believe in Kanmandevadikaraste, so I don't know what will be the end result. But one is putting one's best foot forward, and that is perhaps one of the reasons where I didn't take any government assignment. I mean, there were many forthcoming. I said no. I want my freedom to express my thoughts, to go around the country, talk to people. And as I said, I travel 20 days a month. I can't do more because last year I met with a health problem, and thereafter, I'm limited a bit, but I still travel about 20 days a month, talking to people around.
I must say, I made 6 calls to him to get the date on a weekend, and it was unsuccessful. He was traveling. And I got this only day for an 8-week stretch, and I grabbed that. So despite a weekday, he was here.
No, but what a pleasure it has to be to interact with all of you. It's been lovely.
Questions are winding down. I know, Vineeta, you have a question. Yeah. This probably will be the last question because we'll overshoot the time.
Yeah, my question is addressed to Mr. Swarup. I would like to know why teachers in this country are underpaid. Because you see, they are the ones who are making engineers, doctors of tomorrow. But I feel like, of course, I am also in the education field. So I'm in the coaching industry. There, of course, teachers are well paid. But if you see schools and all, and if I ask children, like, what do you want to become in life? Nobody says, I want to become a teacher or a professor. Whereas during my visit to Canada, I asked the children, and they were very happy to say that I want to become a teacher. So why is it, why are they so underpaid here that nobody thinks of it as a career option?
You are both correct and incorrect. Okay. First of all, the incorrect part. The incorrect part is that they are not underpaid. You go to village, the teacher is the best paid. In fact, in states like UP and Bihar, these teachers employ another teacher to work on their behalf. And they pay to them. And I've seen it from very close quarters. But you're right. In the sense, to me, I felt it that way, that teachers are pivot to school education. And I don't have time, otherwise I would have explained to you what is wrong there. It's not money. There is something else wrong there. Because the biggest mafia of school education is B.Ed and D.L.Ed colleges. And there is a full chapter in my book about this mafia. So we have to take care of this mafia. In my entire career of 38 years, I always made myself redundant in a department or an organization that I was. Systems took over. It was only as education secretary that I felt probably I should have had more time because the problems are much tougher. I don't have time, otherwise I would go on to explain to you what the problems relating to teachers are and how they can actually be handled. I'm not merely pointing out that there is a problem, but they can be actually sorted out. You are right, teachers are pivot to school education. Secondly, It's not money that people want to become teachers or not money. You know, why do you want people become IS officers or IPS officers? Because of the recognition that they get. Rightly or wrongly, I'm not saying. They do get. We as a society don't recognize a teacher. So again, I don't want to get into that debate, but you're right. Teachers are the pivot of school education, but perhaps you're wrong that they are underpaid. They are underpaid in private schools, but not in government schools.
Thank you.
So we'll wind down the question. I have one question to Dilip because I know him for I don't know how many years. He hasn't changed at all. He looks the same 30 years back and he looks the same now. And you know, he retired. He called me once and said, Suresh, I'm planning a easy afterlife, after corporate life. And he went to shake hands with his chairman, Mr. Birla, because he was retired. Mr. Birla called him the next day and said, you retired from one job. He gave him 8 jobs next day. Today, all the educational universities, all vice chancellors of the Birla Group report to him. He's setting up one confidential business. He's got, I don't know how many businesses report to you. All of them report to him. So my question on all your behalf that leads us to the Ashish's module, how do you stay fit? How do you stay live, fit? He's aware of Germany, he's aware of China, he's aware of, I mean, with him, you know, from boots and footwear industry all the way to rocket and satellite industry, he's an encyclopedia. He puts himself in good, solid network, and he's also well aware of what's happening around the world. So I want to ask him, what's the secret?
Just love your work and stay happy.
That's right. That's right.
If you love what you do, is what happens.
Absolutely.
No?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So on that note, we will thank both these gentlemen once again.
Thank you so much. Pleasure.
And because
Athletes, as I mentioned, and I am fascinated by reading this, that he has a holistic way of assessing and treating sports people by amalgamating techniques from Maitland, McKinsey, Syriacs, and Pilates. So it's amazing, Ashish. We really want to know more about this and about YOS. So please.
Sorry. Thank you. So let me start first by thanking Mr. Suresh. Thank you for having me here. I've really thoroughly enjoyed the evening so far, and I've you know, those 2 presentations, Mr. Swarup and Mr. Gaur, you know, brilliant. I mean, that's so much learning. I've made so many notes for myself because so much personal learning from all the anecdotes and the stories. So while I leave that little show-off slide of mine up there for you guys to watch, it's been my sort of 23 years of work in musculoskeletal health, and I will then now expose that concept of musculoskeletal health to you. And to be honest, I wasn't entirely sure how to pitch, where to pitch this presentation. So we will make a lot of it interactive. And we'll perhaps start with a little bit of interaction straight away. Can I have a show of hands for all those people who've suffered some sort of musculoskeletal health condition over the last 12 months? So over the last 12 months, if you've had neck pain, back pain, shoulder, knee, how many of us? I was not expecting this. I was thinking maybe 50%, but this is maybe about 70%. And the rest of them are distracted, otherwise it would have been 100%, I think. So, and how many of you continue to have one of these conditions? How many of you continue? Really? Okay, so that's come down to about 30% now. Okay, maybe the rest of you are feeling a little ashamed of admitting that you're still in pain. So here are the WHO numbers. So we know that, I know now that you're fascinated by numbers and driven by numbers, as you know, fairly so, we should all be. So we'll talk numbers. Musculoskeletal health, by definition, is muscle skeletons that make your body function, make your body move. And the reason
it's now being classed as a separate module of health is because traditionally speaking, ages ago, health was looked at as a combination of making people well by giving them something to eat or drink, as well as parallelly, there was always a system in pretty much all civilizations, there was also a parallel system which was looking after your physical state. So allowing you to function, and that was musculoskeletal health. So yoga, capoeira, tai chi, all these were musculoskeletal health looking after processes that have carried on for ages. But of course, with the advent of modernization, industrial revolution, pharmaceutical companies, the more organized sectors went into, and rightly so, fighting off infections, which at the time were the biggest problems that we were facing in health. So that got done, and then as we kept fighting off infection, and we actually came out a fair winner in getting rid of a lot of those communicable diseases that were affecting us through vaccines, antibiotics, other drugs. We didn't realize when we were stepping into this other phase of our struggle, which was lifestyle conditions. So as modernization happened, we moved from fighting communicable infectious diseases to now lifestyle diseases. So lifestyle diseases also got addressed in the same way that communicable diseases were being addressed through the pharmaceutical industry. However, that need not be the case. So when chemistry was still being, the modern side of chemistry was still being developed, everybody wanted to create an experiment and make gold, right? The earlier chemists wanted to make gold. They wanted to find a way of converting another element into gold. So that's a little bit of my obsession as well. I am trying to figure out a certain module of health that can have the most profound effect on your overall health and fitness. And musculoskeletal health is that module of health that will have a profound effect on every other aspect of health. And you can take it as far out as mental health, social health, emotional health, and the health of your internal organs, which is what the lifestyle conditions and the lifestyle diseases are affecting us through. So WHO, thanks. So this is the recent most study by the WHO where they are talking about 1.71 billion people on this planet currently affected by musculoskeletal health condition needing help. These are not just people who are happy to function in pain. These are actually people needing help now. By 18% of the human race needs help to function. We are designed as the most beautiful machine that can ever be designed, and we need help to function. And another very sorry figure to put up there is that this number gets more and more skewed for worse as and when we start looking into the vulnerable pockets of our population. So this is an Indian study published in June, which talks about nearly 56% of students aged 8 to 15 suffering from low back pain. When they were interviewed, and this is a large sample size, they interviewed them and they found that nearly 56% of them suffered from back pain in the prior 12 months. So we did that little sample here, and we thought this is an urban problem and of a certain age group. It's not. It goes beyond what we can even imagine. Sorry, you're going to have to be my helper. This is another Indian study published in the February of this year, which talks about 59% of sedentary workers complaining of spinal or joint pains, same as you guys have done. The definition of a sedentary worker here was anybody who spends 4 hours sitting down, which by definition makes pretty much any city dweller a sedentary worker. You spend 2-3 hours in traffic, you spend a minimum of 3 or 4 hours at work, so we're all sedentary workers. Anybody who's had a spinal condition, anybody who's had low back pain in the past? Okay. So I'm gonna, okay, I got you as well. I'll ask you a very simple thing, and we'll just have a little discussion about what information you have about your back pain, how you think, how you perceive it, and whether you've understood how to prevent it in future. So one of the most common conditions in affecting low back pain are disky pathologies. So we would have all come across this term, disc slips, disky pathologies, sciatica, pain down the leg, pain in the hip. How many of those of us, I think about 20-25 of you said you've had low back pain. How many of you found that this condition affected you for the first time in the morning? Was it in the morning? Was it in the morning? In the morning? Morning? Okay. Morning. Most clients, most patients who come to us complain of having had their first experience of low back pain in the morning. And I'll tell you why I'm harping on about it a little bit, because there's such a beautiful scientific explanation for this. We are the tallest in the morning. Did we know that? We know we're the tallest in the morning. We know why that is, right? Because the discs, and there are 23 of them in the human body, the discs absorb fluid, imbibe fluid overnight, and get bigger and fatter. So when you get up in the morning, those discs are bigger, and hence you're taller. As you get through the day, the pounding on your spine makes those discs release the excess fluid, and hence by evening they've desiccated and come back to their normal size, and hence by evening you're a little shorter than you were in the morning. Now why am I telling you this? I'm telling you this because when you get up in the morning and those big fat discs are sitting there, they're a little wobbly. And in that situation, when you put excessive pressure on them, when there is axial loading with forward bending and rotation, that's when your back can seize up. That's when your muscles stop you from doing anything any more stupid and arrest that movement and ensure that you get locked there, lie down, let that spasm get out. So your body is trying to protect you from putting undue pressure on your discs, and hence save all the sensitive structures around your discs, which may hurt you even more. Where has this been applied? This has been applied in factories, in anywhere where lifting and manual handling is involved, and the processes have been set up in factories in a manner that all the lifting and manual handling happens post 11 o'clock in a lot of factories in the UK and Europe. And that's how the back care model has been developed and implemented very well in workplaces. So musculoskeletal health has actually become a hindrance in productivity, and there have been solutions, very simple ones in that, around it, which have been implemented in that manner. So just a little story to... the other findings of WHO have been... I'm actually a little uncomfortable. I'm not used to jackets at all. We walk around in t-shirts and shorts. So I'm just going to take it off. Heart conditions are the #1 killer, which is the one thing that every heart condition sufferer will get told? Exercise. Exercise. We are living longer. So this study looked at human health between the year 2000 and 2019. So 20 years, 2 decades of research led to these outcomes. So we're living longer. What are we living longer for? So what's the plan here? Is the grand plan to get out of your electric cars, get into your electric wheelchairs, move into your electric bed, and ask Siri and Alexa to draw the curtains and shut the doors? What's the plan? Or is the plan to continue to function, move, and enjoy life in a manner that your human body is designed to? So if that's the plan, then musculoskeletal health needs to be looked after. Musculoskeletal health is the keyword and the buzzword for us. There is a global decline in deaths from communicable diseases, and hence that reflects very well in all the medical grants that are being issued to institutes all across the world. These grants have moved into finding solutions for back care, finding solutions to knee pain, shoulder pains, musculoskeletal conditions, and not so much communicable conditions, which is a little ironic because we've just come out of COVID-19, which was clearly a communicable disease, but event that couldn't have been predicted. We still can't predict it. We don't know when the next one's going to happen, but this is something which is in our control, in our hand. We can make it work. In 2007, the American College of Sports Medicine came up with this beautiful tagline, and they said, exercise is medicine. Problem here is that unlike popping a paracetamol or any other drug, this statement has a condition. And the condition is that you have to be musculoskeletally, basically fit to be able to exercise. So I might have picked up a sport to get fit, but what if I'm not fit for the sport? The number of clients that we see who've started a sport because they thought they wanted to lose a bit of weight, they wanted to get active, they wanted to start, leading a fitter life, but then got injured within the first few days, if not the first few weeks, and were right back where they started, or even worse, because they weren't fit for it. So exercise is a medicine, but are you fit to exercise? And then if you're not, how do you address that? Prerequisite is having musculoskeletal health of a manner which allows you to exercise, which allows you to explore and push the boundaries of human movement. That's my fascination. My fascination is with how the body moves and how it moves in a manner that we are able to achieve amazing feats with our movement. What's next, please? So health and happiness goes hand in hand. These are the 4 chemicals in our body which keep us happy, right? Guess which one activity will help you release all 4 of them. Exercise. Exercise. That wasn't a tough question. You thought it was a trick question. Endorphin release through exercise and through soft tissue manipulation, massages. Dopamine through completing a task. And that task is of you setting yourself a goal. I'm going to run 3 kilometers. You finish that goal, shot of dopamine. Serotonin, mood lifter. Any aerobic exercise, a little jog around the park, gives you a shot of serotonin. Oxytocin. Suresh introduced me to a lot of his tennis mates. And there was such camaraderie in that I beat him and he beat him and we all played together. Oxytocin, the love hormone, right? That binds us all together. And that is the formula of happiness, chemically speaking. These are the chemicals that help us stay happy. So you talk about health, exercise, happiness, exercise, and the economy is doing well. We can stay happy. Job done. Next. So the epitome So when I understood musculoskeletal health early on in my career, I then started chasing musculoskeletal health in a manner that I could continue to challenge my skills in restoring musculoskeletal health in the most complex conditions. And those conditions are sports. So who challenges themselves and pushes the boundaries more than a sports person? Nobody, right? That's a sports person. So if you can solve a problem in sport, clearly everything else only gets easier. So that's where we started, or I started, spent many years, and I wish I could claim and take the credit of being a very dedicated worker with not so much remuneration. I actually got paid a lot of money to look after 36 athletes over the last few years. That was my job. My job was to look after the top cricketers in this country and get paid a lot of money for that. Until the time that I realized that if this is possible with someone who puts their body online every single day, how is it not possible to implement the same processes? So then the problem is the processes. So the same processes should be able to help the 1.7 billion people out there. So went out with that question, set up a little model, wondering why is it that Virat is able to get through the spasm in his back, get back in the gym, and get back out there in the park in 3 weeks' time, and you still can't do it. The reason is he's got access to me and you don't. That's the difference. He's got access to me, and me as in me and my fraternity. He's got access to the best sports health specialist, and you don't. What if that access was created? And we'd still have to deal with motivation and compliance, but at least the choice is there, the option's there, right? This person is a non-athlete. This is the MRI of a non-athlete on your left. On your right is the MRI of an athlete. Very similar conditions, very different outcomes. So the athlete was looked after by us, was back running, jumping, doing whatever they wanted to do in about 2.5 weeks' time, less than 3 weeks. And this person struggled for months before they came to us and were then put on a path to recovery. Why? There was no reason whatsoever. The only reason was, again, those processes which one person had access to and the other person didn't. So when we were mulling over this and we were trying to figure out, what can be done about it and whether it's even then financially viable and everything else that I've learned today, could this be a solution which could also be a business? And could we make this work, was the question. And with that quest, I tried to put a team together to then figure out what if we created the same team and the same environment for a regular person that we would create for the Indian cricket team or the Indian football team or the Indian hockey team. And the three of us came together. Dr. Srikant Narayan Swamy is a sports medicine specialist and a sports radiologist. Rahul Patwardhan is a sports scientist. So sports science, sports physio, sports massage, sports medicine, and musculoskeletal radiology. These were the professions put together, and we came up with YOS. YOS, which is Sanskrit for health and happiness, it's actually a little anglicized. It's YOS, but it's getting to be pronounced as YOS, which we don't mind. It's Sanskrit for health and happiness, and the idea is to create a service which delivers musculoskeletal health outcomes the same as we would deliver them for an athlete. So you are then automatically elevated to the state of an athlete and have access to a service that an athlete would have access to, and hence the outcomes would then be the same as that of an athlete. these are the departments that you would have access to, and the best part is that the decision making is taken off you. So Virat doesn't walk in and say, let me now meet my physio and then I will go meet my SNC and I will then go have a massage. He just rocks up. He just rocks up to a place and the place looks after him. And that's what we've done. So you rock up to yours and you say, my knee is hurting. That's all you have to say. And then from there, a carefully curated patient pathway takes over, and that patient pathway moves you through the system, all the time the attention being to deliver a desired outcome. That's the objective. So the performance design of human body is what we understand extremely well, right? Because we've worked in those environments and we've delivered in those environments. And the difference that we found through our research and understanding was the lack of assessments. So all physio exercises, all strength and conditioning exercises are nothing that are not already being done in a lot of other areas, be it yoga, be it capoeira, be it tai chi, be it anywhere else. But where are the assessments? How do you know where you stand? Anybody had a knee condition that they've suffered from? A knee condition? Sir, what was the exercise given to you, if I may ask? For the knee? Did they give you an exercise? Yeah. Was this one of the exercises? Was this one of the exercises? The knee is supported by two major group of muscles, the quadriceps and the hamstrings. To have a protective effect, they must function in a certain ratio, is what research has shown us. That ratio is 3:2. 3:2. Most of the times, your quadriceps or the muscle in the front of your thigh is only switched off because of pain. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not weak. It's naturally stronger than the hamstrings. However, it's actually working harder than it should, is why your kneecap is constantly banging into your femur, your thigh bone. And what you need to do, sir, is to actually work on your hamstrings. But there is this auto mode that we're all functioning on, where there are a certain set of exercises prescribed in certain conditions without an assessment in place. There are no assessments in place. So nobody bothers to look at the actual strength of the muscle. Nobody bothers to look at why you should be exercising a certain group of muscle, where actually the exact opposite group of muscle is far weaker. And the ratio will never be achieved because you're doing something that you're not required to do. And why should there be so many exercises? If I need to target a group of muscles, I need one exercise. Time efficiency, if not achieved, is the biggest problem that keeps you non-compliant. The problem in musculoskeletal health that we're trying to solve is that you, sir, can make me look great, or you can also make me look stupid. Because I have given you the program, but the program is so elaborate and perhaps non-specific that you fall off it, you don't do it, and then I am ineffective. That's the problem that we're trying to solve through accurate, precise assessments, which will then deliver. So anybody who's had knee conditions, please do focus on your hamstrings, your calf, and your hip muscles, mobility, as well as strength. Movement, ultimately that's what we need to achieve, right? It is not a solution to not go up and down the stairs. It's not a solution to not walk. It's not a solution. Please stop accepting these solutions. And please stop being a party to these solutions. That's not a solution. There has to be a solution. Demand for a solution. I have never come across an athlete who's come to me and said, yeah, it's okay, see if you can fix it, otherwise I'll retire. That never happens. At age 38, they'll still be fighting with us and saying, I need to get back. Whether I go back or not is my choice, but you make sure that I can go back if I want to. And that's the attitude with which they're able to continue for as long as they do. A body really knows no limits. Ultimately, it's generation of power and a sequence in which our body moves to generate that power, which is the art and the science of it. This is what we've done so far. So far, we've looked after about 5,000 clients, and we've done about 25,000 sessions. We're sitting on tons of data. We're constantly analyzing this data. We're constantly figuring out ways of helping you get there quicker every time. This is what we're doing at the moment. So everything in orange has already been done. So we have your centers. Yours is available online. So we can help you. We can assess you online. Of course, there are limitations because your practitioner will not be able to touch you. Your practitioner will not be able to apply certain technology on you. But the advice is available online. There is Yours Corporate, where we're getting into offices, workplaces, and helping people address musculoskeletal health. So, statistics again for you. 2% was the usage of defined health spaces like meditation halls, yoga halls, gymnasiums. 2% was the utility. 2% of that office employees were using that space. 5% was the best case scenario. We managed to drive this up to 26%. There is 26% engagement where we are running the programs because it's not the machines that will get you fit, it's the programs that will get you fit. And those programs have to be customized, individualized, based on where you're at, what you need to do, and where you want to be. Sorry, just go back one. The most important bit I obviously missed, Yours app. So we've now figured that if you were to really adhere to the processes, it is actually possible to use your data which you're collecting through your Oura Rings, through your Fitbits, through your Garmins, through your iWatches, and collect your data, which you will willfully share with us and not sneak up upon you, and help you help yourself without actually a practitioner having to decipher that data for you. So we are now in the process of creating these automated and semi-automated processes which will help you help yourself through an app which we're hoping to launch next year. So who are we working for and working with? We're working with individuals, we're working with corporates, we're working with sports academies, we're working with schools and colleges, because that's where we see musculoskeletal health modules needing help. Research and development, education programs with universities, we are huge on this. We believe that there is still a lot of research and development to be done, and this research and development can only be done. We cannot suddenly become an R&D institute. We want to partner with other institutes which are already doing it as a part of their jobs. So we are now tying up with Indian universities and international universities to find solutions which are innovative and time efficient. Some of our clients, and that's it. So there's a cheesy tagline at the end of it. You play better when we play together. Okay, so I'm not sure if that was paced at the right level or not, but I will happily interact with you if you have any questions, if time allows. Is that okay? Yes, ma'am. I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one. I will convey the message. Yeah.
You can, now she be asking.
Thank you. Okay, but it was really nice, and it really gives us a sense of, so I'm a doctor myself, but I have also believed in musculoskeletal health always, since every organ of your body is actually a muscle, right from your heart to your liver and everything. So yes, it makes so much sense. However, we would like to know that how, so I was just talking, how because I believe that most of your athletes have turned vegan, a lot of them who are also rooting for their musculoskeletal health. I mean, I've always wanted to understand how this helps in the musculoskeletal health, or if it does.
So I'm not a nutritionist and I'm not qualified to answer that, but I will tell you so much that in my 2.5 decades of spending a lot of time with these people, dietary choices can be managed if you want to manage them in a manner that it doesn't deteriorate your health. They can be managed. There are enough supplements.
My question was, has it helped the musculoskeletal health by making a dietary change?
So I can't say that a vegetarian is faster or stronger than a non-vegetarian. Equally, I cannot say that a non-vegetarian is faster and stronger than a vegetarian. It's a choice that people make, and at the highest level, they are being able to sustain those choices with the help of the expertise they've got around them.
Thank you.
That's it. From a house full of aches and pains. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Google up yours. Google up yours.
So I wanted to ask you,
Yes.
given your 20 years of experience, what will it take for physiotherapy to become proactive and not reactive? A lot of sporting careers would not end because of an injury, and a lot of people sitting here or outside will not accept pain as a part of the life and stop doing things. So that is only possible, I feel, if physiotherapy is promoted as a proactive measure. Normally what happens is something happens, you go to a therapist, you take a session. If you are doing about okay, you will do once or twice and then go back to normal.
That's exactly why, that's a fantastic point. That's exactly why we're not projecting yours, and it isn't physiotherapy. It's a combination of medicine, physio, strength and conditioning, sports science, sports massage, because when you are pain-free, there is something you need to graduate up to. And then when you're there, that's when the circle moves, that's when the cycle moves, that's when you complete the loop. And when you talk about being proactive, actually, there is so much available to athletes now that we're being able to predict with 71% accuracy a certain knee condition that can be career-threatening. 71% accuracy. That accuracy 5 years ago was 6%. So that's how quick the technology is moving, but our obsession is with rolling that technology out to everybody. Why should I only predict the health of an athlete? Why should that same health not be predicted for you? Because you want to enjoy the movements of your body as much as an athlete. Yeah, it's a job for them, but nonetheless equally useful for you. But yeah, thank you for that.
Hi.
Hi.
Ashish, you spoke about, I really actually like that line, exercise is medicine, right?
Not my line, yeah.
Where,
Thanks.
Yeah, but it was nice. Where I think the idea is we are all advocating is for people to get moving, right? And therefore prevent injuries and related symptoms, right? But what I realized, and there are a bunch of us who are quite active, what I have realized is it's the active ones that seem to be more prone to injury, right?
Exactly.
So what's the holy grail? Where's the pixie dust? I just need to understand that, right?
Yeah, so that's exactly what I said, right? That sometimes you'll pick up a sport, you'll randomly, if you've been not so active for a certain amount of time, do you think you can randomly get into an activity? And do you think that's a fair thing to do? And can it be structured better at the back of assessments which guides you through the process, not to become your crutch forever, but to guide you through the first few steps until the time you're then independently active at that level?
No, Ashish, I think maybe I wasn't able to explain what I was asking. What I was asking is that it's the active ones, right, that seem to be getting injured right? They're more prone to injuries simply because, you know, here I am cycling and running and squatting and weightlifting, and you get it. And we're doing all of that. And I know that in the last 25 years of me working out, I must have at different points of time injured different parts of my body, right? So vis-a-vis so many other people that I know, I may be fitter or I may appear to be fitter than a lot of them, but I know that they have not gone through the kind of injuries I have, right? Where you're saying that if exercise is medicine, they don't need it because they're not hurting. We are.
Look, if you don't, if you're happy to be a couch potato and if you're happy to have a...
Huh? I mean, I'm just trying to understand that where does that... where's the pixie dust? What is the holy grail here? You know, right? What's the right mix?
How much is too much is probably.
Yeah, so if moderation is what you're talking about, and if choice of exercise you're talking about is what you're talking about, then yes, the lady there mentioned proactiveness. The same proactiveness that you show towards your exercise regime and the same loyalty that you show towards your sport, perhaps is also the loyalty that needs to be shown to have yourself regularly assessed, to see when you need. So there is something called acute to chronic workload ratios, which means that your week-on-week workloads, your month-on-month workloads shouldn't create a spike of a certain ratio beyond which your proneness to injuries goes up many folds.
So I get that, right? So that means you're basically saying get yourself assessed so that you prevention, right? You can identify and maybe prevent whatever injury. What about those who are not doing anything? That they're not getting injured, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I think we should call it a night.
Sure. Thanks a lot. Sorry.
Thank you very much for all the questions and the wonderful talk, Ashish.
Thank you.
And as Mr. Swarup just suggested, we can continue.